to Business Review, a daily program that delves into the latest and most significant economic stories. From stock markets to currency news, Business Review covers the most up-to-date stories in the global financial world.
EU leaders agreed on June the 19th that urgent action was needed to hold their coronavirus hit economies from the deepest recession since World War II, but made no progress on a massive stimulus plan. The 27 avoided a bruising bust-up during a summit by video conference of around 4 hours and agreed to meet in person in mid-July to haggle and get across the line a long-term budget and economic rescue package worth 1.85 trillion euros. Under discussion is the EU's 2021 to 2027 budget of about 1.1 trillion euros and a proposal by the Commission to borrow 750 billion euros from the market for a recovery that would help revive economies such as Italy and Spain, which were of course the hardest hit. The European Council President Charles Michel said EU leaders would meet for an in-person summit in mid-July. Meanwhile, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said a key aim of the EU's multi-billion euro stimulus package is to prevent a widening of economic differences in the bloc, which would weaken the EU's internal market. With more than 100,000 deaths from COVID-19, the EU is keen to demonstrate solidarity after months of bickering that has dented public confidence and put the bloc's global standing at risk after its buffeting from Brexit.
China said that any decision by Washington to arbitrarily cut economic ties with Beijing would not be realistic or wise, responding to renewed threats by US President Donald Trump to decouple from China. A top US diplomat for East Asia described US-China relations as tense after the two nations held the first high-level face-to-face talks in months. The remarks came after US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met China's top diplomat Yang Jiechi for a day of talks in Hawaii, but those appear to have done little to improve the mood. Relations between the globe's two largest economies are at their lowest point in years amid the current coronavirus pandemic, with Trump accusing Beijing of not being transparent about the outbreak. The first phase of a US-China trade deal calls on Beijing to buy $200 billion in US goods and services over 2 years, but skeptics say the pandemic and resulting economic slowdowns will make it difficult for Beijing to reach its targets for this year. America's top trade negotiator, Ambassador Robert Lighthizer, told Congress he did not think it would be possible to decouple the economies of the two countries. Trump contradicted Lighthizer in a tweet, writing, "The US certainly does maintain a policy option under various conditions of a complete decoupling from China."
The Chinese Premier Li Keqiang will hold the 22nd China-EU leaders meeting with presidents of the European Council, Charles Michel, and President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, on June the 22nd. According to Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian, the meeting will be held on video, noting China attaches great importance to the first official meeting between Chinese and new EU leaders and is willing to promote it for achievements. As this year marks the 45th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and the EU, the official said China is willing to work with the European bloc to enhance cooperation to fight the virus and revive the economy, deepen practical cooperation in trade and investment, connectivity, climate change, and technological innovation. He added his country is also willing to strengthen policy coordination in international and regional hot issues, commonly safeguarding multilateralism and jointly addressing global challenges to promote the development of the post-pandemic China-EU relations and make contributions to world peace, stability, and global economic recovery.
The head of China's top banking and insurance regulator, Zhu Shiken, said that the country's financial authorities will continue to step up efforts to support enterprises and stabilize employment. The chairman of the China Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission said at the Lijiazui Forum that the financial authorities will step up efforts to ensure employment stability and offer more support to enterprises, as so to advance the recovery of the national economy amid the impact of COVID-19. He said that the RMB loans for real economy increased by more than 10 trillion yuan, up to 2 trillion yuan from the level last year, adding that in the next step, the regulatory authorities will further encourage banks to enhance cooperation with the government to support and help enterprises. Zhou stressed that more work will be done to realize mutual support and cooperation between fiscal and financial authorities at various levels, noting that the banks should put forward more unsecured and low-interest credit products, while the governments at all levels should share the cost and loss of enterprises through fiscal discounting guarantee subsidies. This year's credit scale-up policy-oriented banks will increase by nearly 1 trillion yuan from last year's level, and the scale of bond issue will also expand. He affirmed that more insurance products will be introduced this year to reduce the impact of epidemic and natural disasters on agriculture and rural areas. Besides, more financial instruments will be used to facilitate the repair global supply chains. According to the official, China will not adopt strong stimulus policies that may have an economy-wide impact, or monetize its fiscal deficit, or adopt negative interest rates.
Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announced a €4.25 billion plan to help the crucial tourism industry recover from the pandemic. Spain, where the virus has so far killed 27,000 people, will open its borders to the European Union and Schengen area countries on June the 21st, hoping to boost its tourism industry, which generates 12% of the country's GDP. The country closed to international tourism after the pandemic triggered the declaration of a state of emergency on March the 14th, but the government has been under growing pressure to reopen. A select group of German tourists arrived in Spain's island of Majorca on June the 15th as part of a pilot project, which will bring 10,000 holidaymakers to the islands to find out how mass tourism can work in the times of a pandemic. Spain ranks second in the world in terms of tourist spending with €89.85 billion in 2019. Also, it's the second country in the world in number of foreign tourists, with more than 83 million international tourists received in 2019.
European Union leaders began the process of approving an unprecedented stimulus package for their coronavirus-ravaged economies on June 19th, aware they need to deliver help quickly, but still divided over its final size and terms. The 27 national heads started a video conference to discuss a recovery for the bloc that has lost over 100,000 lives to COVID-19 and faces an unprecedented economic downturn, threatening its stability and global standing. Under discussion is the EU's next budget of around €1.1 trillion for 2021 through 2027 and an attached recovery fund of a proposed €750 billion coming from historic borrowing by the Executive European Commission against EU government guarantees. Commission head Ursula von der Leyen said in a video statement released before the start of the meeting that it does not only help the economies of the countries which were hit hardest by the virus, it also helps the countries whose economies have been hit hard indirectly because of the lockdowns. The aid is to be dispersed mainly among worst-hit nations like Italy and Spain, but many differences must still be stalled before the necessary unanimous agreement is in sight. Officials and diplomats expect a deal could come in July.
This has been Business Review, your daily source for the most critical stories in the financial world. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.